Catalyst Quartet wants to make classical music accessible to young and underrepresented audiences. The quartet's debut recording, Bach Gould Project, features a transcription of Johann Sebastian Bach's renowned Goldberg Variations. The album also includes String Quartet by Glenn Gould, a pianist made famous by his recording of the Variations. Heather Longley speaks with quartet violinist Carla Donahue Perez about the moment she decided to become a classical musician. The violinist also talks about choosing the material for the quartet's inaugural album and taking classical music to a broader audience.
How were you mentored as a young musician, or how did you come to find your voice in classical music?
It's a great question. My background's kind of, I guess you could say interesting or funny or whatever you choose. Well, my parents are musicians, and my dad's a violinist and my mom's a flautist. And I grew up in Puerto Rico until I was 12. So my dad was in the symphony and my mom was a professor at the conservatory. And so, I sort of was like a music brat, you could say. They did say I chose the violin, but of course there's always influence there.
Right.
And I did take it seriously growing up and practiced a lot and everything. But for me, the real moment of like choosing to sort of commit myself to this life, or at least to try to make it happen, was when I moved to California. And I was really, I got really lucky in finding this very special school, the Crowden School. It was a middle school. It was founded by a person who then became my main violin teacher, Ann Crowden. And the whole focus around that school was chamber music. That's where I first fell in love with chamber music.
Okay.
And so that kind of opened my eyes to what was possible, and also just like I really just fell in love with that part of our art form, and since then I've always wanted to be in a quartet.
Wow.
So sort of how that happened, and then through college and stuff I kept trying to find a way to make it happen, and then I got lucky. It's working out, so it's pretty.
What were there fewer opportunities in Puerto Rico to pursue music, or was it just a better...
No, my family, they had their own personal reasons for needing to move. Part of it was my own development. Like already at a young age, I was advancing much faster than a lot of the kids around me, and the overall, the exposure that I was getting wasn't enough that my parents. So there was a little slight aspect of that. There were other reasons. My father wanted other musical opportunities. So, they wanted sort of these other opportunities for the family that weren't available at the time in Puerto Rico.
Do you think if you hadn't moved to California, you would be in the same place professionally?
No, definitely not. But, I don't want to speak negatively to the music world in Puerto Rico. There's still opportunities there, and the music, there is a rich culture of classical music there. But it's just like anything else. There's only a small world, and you want to be connected to everything else. So by staying, I may not have seen as much or been as involved with, the rest of the world, or whatever else was out there.
Well, what aspects of your childhood in Puerto Rico do you bring to performing?
I think there's, culturally just like in any culture, there's a way of expressing yourself. There's a way of carrying yourself. And I think that definitely lives in me in the way that I express myself.
So when you visit Penn State, you guys will be performing the Bach Gould Project.
That's correct.
How do you compare your version of the Goldberg Variations with Glenn Gould's version?
Well, I would never compare them necessarily. It's a totally different thing, that was originally written for keyboard. And he was the pioneer. I would say we're inspired. We were inspired by him and his amazing recordings that they shaped our lives. We grew up listening to them, and so that is what gave us that cell to want to do this, to play this great piece.
Do you compare yourselves, or have you listened to other string quartets versions of that piece, just for fun, or?
There aren't any. I mean, I've seen a few sort of string quartet-ish versions, but there aren't any that are really four-part string quartet versions. So ours is the first. So there's no way to compare it to anything else because it doesn't exist besides ours. But Sid Kavetsky, he was the first one to arrange it for a string trio and string orchestra, like to bring it into the string family. And that's another thing that we grew up listening to as well. Listening to the greats play that, including Sid Kavetsky, and kind of wanting, the whole thing was like, quartets don't get to play Bach, but as string players, you grow up playing Bach, so it's sort of, that's a part of your childhood as a string player, your youth that you don't get once you're playing professionally.
So, in your words, how did Gould's version differ from his debut and his final recording of that piece?
I'm not an expert on these things, so I don't want to but it's definitely, he lived with that piece for so long, and I think that you can really hear, like in the second version, that it's sort of happening to us as well. Like, you record something and then you start playing concerts all over the place, and you see that you change, and that's part of what makes music so great, is that you're constantly trying new things. And I mean, can you imagine like going from that giant span between the two recordings, but what changed in his life, how was he different musically? I mean, it's and you hear it, every movement is different.
I have read something online about the Goldberg Variations and how it was possibly written to help a count go to sleep.
Yeah.
Is there any truth behind that, or?
I think so. Yeah, okay. I think there is truth behind that. It's interesting though, because it's one of those pieces that was it's called the Goldberg Variations, and Goldberg is the pianist, not the patron, which is interesting. That's rare. But yeah, I'm sure there is some truth to it, but you never know how much people. There's always good to have a story for the audience. People love that kind of stuff.
Do you think that kind of thing brings out more people?
Not necessarily, but I do think that it gives the listener a connection to. Sorry, I'm having some coffee. A connection to the work in a different way. Just like giving them some background or something to latch onto helps.
What made Catalyst decide to make the Goldberg Variations your debut recording?
Our whole philosophy behind what we're trying to do, and like how we're trying to present music is to really bring something for everyone and try sort of new things in the concert sort of tradition, if that makes any sense. And there's so many amazing quartets out there. There's amazing recordings of Beethoven quartets, Brahms quartets, Mendelssohn's. And as our debut recording, we really wanted to make a splash. We wanted it to be a very significant project, something that really meant something to us, and that was also a grand work, a very, special, difficult, challenging, but that made a statement. That we play Beethoven, Brahms, and all that kind of stuff, but we also have something a little bit different, and so that was really important to us.
I know the story behind Sphinx. How has it helped you with your career?
I mean, they've helped tremendously. I mean, it's amazing. They have been such a huge support. I mean, they started the quartet. They offered me the job I've always wanted, basically. Like, would you like to be in a professional string quartet? Absolutely. Yeah. And I leave where I am right now to be there. So yes, there is a slight misconception that they have handed us our career. However, we have had to do a lot of the sort of footwork. We've had to put in our time to get all of that figured out. But they provide us with exposure and opportunities, and have been, I would say, like mentors or sponsors, just like really a wonderful, supportive part of our growth. And we wouldn't be here without them. They're pretty spectacular.
Catalyst Quartet performs music from Bach Gould Project, September 17th, 2015 at Penn State's Esber Recital Hall. For tickets or information, visit cpa.psu.edu or phone 800-ARTS-TIX.